Chapter 651. In the next few days, Ning Luo and Gaines argued. During this time, Mo often approached Ning Luo when Gaines wasn't around. Ning Luo didn't dare to get too close to Mo, perhaps because of what happened that day. However, Mo wasn't discouraged even after a few days. He even sat beside her and chatted with her. He even told her that he only wanted to be nice to her and didn't intend to force her. He also asked Ning Luo not to ignore him. Mo looked honest and pitiful, which made Ning Luo's heart soften. She said, "Then we'll be friends. I won't be your female." "Okay, we'll be friends." Mo saw that Ning Luo wasn't too happy, so he didn't force her. This left a good impression on Ning Luo. As long as Gaines went out, Mo would visit her whenever he was free and bring her all sorts of good things. Ning Luo believed that she had already made it clear to Mo that they could only be friends, so their interactions should be that of friends. Mo wouldn't think of anything else. Therefore, when she received gifts and spent time with Mo, it wasn't so awkward. She would often tell Mo that Gaines was too rude. Looking at Mo's honest face, she even thought that if she had known Mo from the start, he wouldn't have been so rude to her. Tangguo flirted with the High Priestess while paying attention to the grudges between Ning Luo, Mo, and Gaines. Her days were extremely comfortable. Today, it was finally time for Ning Luo and Gaines to go out to pick useful spices and edible plants. Mo wanted to go too, but he had to hunt with the others, so he could only regret it. At this time, Ning Luo hadn't succeeded in attracting Heilang's attention. Even if the other female beastmen in the tribe wanted to sow discord between her and Ning Luo, they wouldn't succeed. If Olga hadn't been persuaded by Tangguo to go to another tribe to find a suitable mate, the other female beastmen in the tribe would definitely complain about Ning Luo every day. It wasn't a big deal, but people would mention it every day. With Olga's one-track mind, she would definitely believe everyone. And because Ning Luo had Gaines, she would definitely go against Ning Luo. After Olga died, everyone started to instigate a guogua again. At that time, Heilang was already very concerned about a guogua. He had completely forgotten that he wanted to wait for a guogua to reach adulthood. Of course, it didn't matter to a guogua whether Heilang waited for her to reach adulthood or not. If she didn't like Heilang, Heilang could like anyone. However, ever since Heilang fell in love with Ning Luo, he would always choose Ning Luo's side without any consideration. A guogua. Yin Yaro's voice came from behind. This was his stone house. Guogua always liked to sit outside his stone house and stare blankly. As the high priest, he could not bear to look at how Gaines had been trying to make Ning Luo happy every day for the past few days. After all, Gaines was the second strongest warrior in the tribe. How could he transform into his original form, roll on the ground, stick out his tongue, and wag his tail to please a female? This was too damaging to the image of a warrior. If he had a female in the future, it would be impossible for him to behave like this. Guogua cares a lot about Gain. Yin Yaro couldn't help but ask. After all, a guogua had been staring at Ning Luo and Gaines recently. Tangguo turned around and glanced at Yin Yaro. She smiled and said, "Why would the high priest think that I care about Gain? Then why do you stare at Gain every day?" Yin Yaro didn't think there was anything wrong with her words. Chapter 652. When Tangguo heard this, she turned around and looked at Yin Yaro with a serious face. "High priest, why did you ask this? Are you curious?" The system host was so mean. Yin Yaro was speechless for a moment. That's right, why did he ask this? Curious? More like curious. No, as the high priest, how could he admit that he asked this question out of curiosity? No. Yin Yaro was obviously wrapped in animal skin, but he just stood at the door of the stone house with an aloof posture. How could it be out of curiosity? Tangguo almost died from laughter. So coquettish. Yin Yaro could faintly feel that the little female in front of him revealed disbelief in her eyes. He even seemed to have seen the smile in her eyes just now, as if she had seen through everything. But it was too short, he thought it was an illusion. First, it must be an illusion. How could this little female have the guts to laugh at him? Then why? The little female looked at Yin Yaro with sparkling and curious eyes. He almost couldn't control himself and blurted out that it was because of curiosity. But he forced himself to hold it in. He would never admit it. Agwugwa. His expression was serious as he called her seriously. Yes. Tangwa answered with a smile. She looked extremely obedient. Yin Yarrow wanted to keep a straight face, but in front of the obedient little female, he couldn't help but soften his face. He even had the urge to smile at her. He frowned. He was a little confused by this feeling. Gan Yen already has a female. Yin Yarrow really couldn't keep a straight face. He could only try his best to not show any other expression. He wanted to warn her with a stern voice, but when he looked at her, his tone became much gentler. Unless Gan Yen was abandoned by his female, you shouldn't stare at Gan Yen every day. What are your thoughts? Fart. The system couldn't help but spit out. The host was right, this guy was coquettish. If it wasn't for the fear of scaring Yin Yarrow, Tangwa would have laughed out loud. This coquettish was a little cute. He actually expressed that he didn't want her to interact with other males in a roundabout way. He had a future. Seeing that Tangwa was still in a daze, Yin Yarrow's expression became more serious. He tapped her forehead with his finger. Agwugwa, did you hear what I said? I heard it, High Priest. Tangwa looked at Yin Yarrow with a smile. I'll listen to you, I'll listen to whatever you say. System, oh my god, I can't take it anymore. The host's moral integrity is gone. Yin Yarrow opened his mouth and did not know what to say for a moment. The little female in front of him was so obedient, especially when she said, I'll listen to you. I'll listen to whatever you say. It really pierced through his heart and gave him a very special feeling. As for what that feeling was, he could not grasp it. It's good that you know. Yin Yarrow's intuition told him not to think about it anymore. This was just an underage little female, a naughty little female. Remember, you're not allowed to visit Gaines again. Yin Yarrow reminded her again. Since he had already said it, it didn't matter if he said it again. Tangwa walked closer to Yin Yarrow and smiled sweetly at him. All right, High Priest, I won't look at Gaines anymore. Millimeter, Agwugwa is sensible now. Yin Yarrow thought that he had achieved his goal and was very satisfied. However, he didn't expect that the little female wasn't done talking. She blinked at him. High Priest, I won't look at Gaines anymore. I'll only look at you from now on. What do you think? Yin Yarrow was dazzled by the little female's smile. His mind was filled with, I'll only look at you from now on. I'll only look at you. Chapter 653. High Priest, what's wrong? Tangwa asked knowingly, waving her hand in front of Yin Yarrow. Yin Yarrow's messy mind finally calmed down. He glanced at her indifferently. Nothing, I still have herbs to deal with. Agwugwa, go play. After saying that, he turned and went into the house. After taking 2 steps, he realized something was wrong. He turned back and saw that the little female was still following behind him. Agwugwa, you can go play. High Priest, I don't want to play. Yin Yarrow, then go back to your residence and sleep. I don't want to sleep either. Yin Yarrow frowned. What do you want to do? I want to see High Priest. Tangwa said eagerly, High Priest, you know that I'm sick, I feel uncomfortable if I don't look at you. You can deal with your herbs, I won't disturb you, I'll just watch from the side, it won't affect you. How could it not affect her? Yin Yarrow screamed crazily in his heart, she was watching from the side, could he calm down and deal with the herbs? But he said, up to you. After saying that, Yin Yarrow was very upset. Why did he agree to this little female's rude request? Looking at her eager, cute and obedient look, forget it, she'll just watch. The two of them went to the space behind the stone house together. There were many herbs drying here, there were beast men injured every day, the consumption of herbs was relatively large. Especially since the beast tide was coming this year, the herbs here were probably not enough. Yin Yarrow calculated the number of herbs and said, from tomorrow onwards, we'll go out and pick more herbs. When he said this, his expression was really solemn. Counting the days, the beast tide was really coming soon. By then, he didn't know how many members of the Laduo tribe would be left. This was a heavy topic, he didn't think about it anymore, squatting at the side to deal with the herbs. Tangwa sat cross-legged at the side, watching Yin Yarrow deal with the herbs. Occasionally, Yin Yaro really couldn't stand being stared at with such a scorching gaze. He raised his head to take a look and happened to see this little female looking at him with a sparkling and especially serious gaze. He almost knocked over a pile of herbs. This Agwugwa, she was too naughty. Every time he raised his head, he could see the other party looking at him obediently. It caused Yin Yaro to not raise his head at all. After he got serious, he soon forgot about the existence of Agwugwa. Tangwa didn't care. She liked to see cute people doing things seriously. Such people had a special charm that would attract people. She liked serious people. Yin Yaro did this for a long time. When he raised his head, he subconsciously looked at Tangwa's seat and found that there was no one there. He shook his head with a chuckle. Sure enough, she was still a child. She couldn't sit still and went to play. He didn't know why, but there was a sense of loss in his heart. He ignored it and didn't care. He stood up. He was a little hungry and was about to eat some fruits to satisfy his hunger. Unexpectedly, as soon as he walked into the stone house, he smelled a fragrance coming from outside. He had wanted to chew on the fruit, but he couldn't help but walk out of the stone house. He saw the little female cooking food. There was even a rack for barbecuing meat by the side. The fragrant smell came from the cooked meat. There was still oil on it, and it was golden yellow. It smelled good, and it should taste good. Yin Yaro tried hard to shift his gaze to Tangwa. Agwugwa, what are you doing? Chapter 654. Barbecue. Tangwa pointed at the meat on the rack. There were spices mixed in the meat, as well as other spices that she secretly added. On the other side, there was wild vegetable soup. She added a piece of fatty meat to make the wild vegetable soup not so bland. When the meat was cooked, it would be mixed in the wild vegetable soup and eaten with the barbecue. It would definitely be delicious. Yin Yaro walked to the front of the rack and took a look. He said, "The meat that Agwugwa barbecued is different. It's not burnt at all." Yin Yaro's eyes were filled with admiration. He had barbecued meat before. Although it was not as burnt as other orcs, it did not look as appetizing as the one in front of him. The meat that he barbecued looked okay, but it did not taste good at all. Except for some salt, it was dry and hard to bite. But the one in front of him, he had a feeling that it should be easy to bite. Thinking of the meat soup that Agwugwa cooked every day, he did not seem to get tired of it. He was looking forward to the taste of the barbecue meat. Tangwa saw Yin Yaro's expression. Men always had a few weaknesses. Yin Yaro looked aloof, but he was actually a man who was cold on the inside. As long as Yin Yaro got used to her, he would slowly understand his heart. She liked the feeling of being in love. While thinking, she flipped the meat on the rack. "High Priest, you can drink some wild vegetable soup first." Yin Yaro looked at the wild vegetable soup. He really wanted to taste it, but he still said, "No rush. We'll eat it when the meat is done." "Okay," she said with smiling eyes. Her obedient look while barbecuing the meat seriously made Yin Yaro unable to take his eyes off her. Soon, the meat was done. Yin Yaro looked at the golden piece of meat lying in the utensil. Then, he looked at Tangwa, who was already eating with relish. He did not hold back. When he bit down, his mouth was full of fragrance. He almost swallowed his tongue. It was really too delicious. A piece of meat in his mouth was tender and tender. It was really delicious. Drinking another mouthful of the wild vegetable soup, Yin Yaro was looking forward to living like this every day and eating such delicious food. "High Priest, is it delicious?" Tangwa asked with a smile. Yin Yaro swallowed the meat and praised, "Delicious." "Then eat more. There's more." Yin Yaro nodded and ate the barbecued meat and broth. He narrowed his eyes and seemed to be enjoying himself. Tangwa also felt that it was very delicious. She had a world where she was a cook. She also liked delicious food. In order to reach the peak of cooking, she traveled all over the country and learned all the dishes that she could learn. What's the big deal about barbecue? She looked at Yin Yaro's expression of enjoyment and clicked her tongue. This man was too easy to coax. A piece of barbecued meat was enough to achieve his goal. "High Priestess, do you want to eat such delicious food every day?" Yin Yaro glanced at Tangwa. He didn't understand what she meant, but who wouldn't like such delicious food? Of course, he replied. Tangwa smiled and took a sip of the soup before saying, "The High Priestess' wish will come true." Yin Yarrow seemed to have noticed something from that pair of beautiful eyes. He hummed in agreement and lowered his head to continue eating. In his mind, he wondered if this little female really meant it that way. He glanced at Tangwa from the corner of his eyes and found that she was already seriously eating the food. He couldn't see her expression at all. Eating the delicious food, Yin Yarrow fell into a dilemma. Actually, Agwagwa was quite cute. She could cook soup and barbecued meat. She was very obedient when she smiled. Her voice was sweet. Thinking of this, Yin Yarrow's face stiffened. What was he thinking? Chapter 655. Yin Yarrow wanted to ignore the little female's face, but her cute and obedient smiling face kept appearing in his mind. The more he tried to ignore it, the more he remembered her every action. In the end, he didn't force himself. When he looked at the little female again, he secretly made a decision. If the little female was still so close to him after a year of adulthood, it wouldn't be a bad idea to become his mate. He had been avoiding it because Hei Lang had already made it clear that he wanted to wait for Agwagwa to become an adult. But now he understood that he had taken a fancy to this little female. For a beast man, once he had taken a fancy to a female, he couldn't give in, unless the female wasn't willing to accept him. Or else, no matter how many males were interested in her, he had to compete. Thinking about how Agwagwa really became another beastman's female, he did feel a little uncomfortable. Sure enough, he had taken a fancy to this little female. What about her? Yin Yarrow's mind was in a mess. Was it a spur of the moment, curiosity, or did she really have the same thoughts as him? Did she like him too? He wasn't sure. High Priest, why are you looking at me? Tangwa noticed the complicated look on Yin Yarrow's face just now. She also noticed the look on his face when he secretly made a decision. This guy who was cold on the outside finally got it. High Priest, do you also have the illness where you feel uncomfortable when you don't look at me? Yin Yarrow was drinking soup. When he heard this, he almost spat it out. How could Agwagwa think that he had this illness? Then, Yin Yarrow frowned. That wasn't right. He did think that if she became another beastman's female, he would feel uncomfortable. And when he looked at her, he did feel a little comfortable. Tangwa saw that Yin Yarrow was in deep conflict and was overjoyed. System, the host is bullying me again because I have no memory. No. Yin Yarrow retorted. Wait until she became an adult. Tangwa stopped teasing him and continued asking, High Priest, I heard that you were preparing to go out and pick herbs. Yes, the beast tide is coming. I need to prepare more. I'll go with you. Yin Yarrow wanted to reject her, but seeing her eager look, he said, Okay, we'll go out tomorrow morning. The sky was dark, but Gan Yen and Ning Luo still hadn't returned. Many members of the tribe were very anxious. They were all wondering if something had happened to them. Among the female beast men, many of them were discussing. Gaines was so powerful that he would definitely be fine. If something really happened, it must have been the weak Ning Luo who dragged Gaines down. Anyway, all the beast men were complaining. If it wasn't for Ning Luo, Gain wouldn't be in danger. As for the male members, they were also very worried about Gain, so they didn't talk about Ning Luo. The female beast men of this era all had a strong heart, so it was normal for them to hate Ning Luo. Males were slightly better. In their eyes, no matter how strong a female was, she was still weak and could not be compared to a male with a strong body. They didn't think that Ning Luo would implicate Gaines. They all thought that since Ning Luo was Gaines' female, Gaines would definitely risk his life to protect her. Tangwa wasn't worried at all. Ning Luo and Gaines would be fine. Even if something happened to them, it was none of her business. She turned around and went to sleep. Tomorrow morning, she still had to go pick herbs with Yin Yarrow. The next morning, when Tangwa woke up, she heard the noise outside. Chapter 656. Is Ning Luo really gone? Gaines, you didn't protect Luo Luo well. When Amo heard the news, he rushed out and started fighting with Gaines. Isn't Luo your female? Why didn't you protect her well? The two of them started fighting very quickly. The people around them couldn't stop them. Soon, they transformed into their original forms. They pounced, bit and tore at each other. It was a terrifying scene. The ground shook because of them. Gaines was from the lion tribe and Amo was from the tiger tribe. They were both strong warriors in the forest. Although Amo was a bit weaker than Gaines, he was furious that Gaines had lost Ning Luo. When they fought, he unleashed his full potential and gave Gaines a good beating. Tangua stood on the side and silently watched the animals fight until the black wolf came over and transformed into a giant wolf. It sent Gain and Amo flying with a single swipe of its paw. With just one swipe, it beat Gain and Amo to the point where they couldn't get up. They lay on the ground, panting, and slowly turned back into human form. But Amo still wasn't satisfied. He rushed up and shouted at Hei Lang, "Gaines lost Luo. I think Gaines doesn't deserve Luo. He's too weak. He can't protect his female. He's a disgrace to us male beast men. Gaines, tell me what happened." Gaines told them everything. He blamed himself. If he had held Luo's hand, she wouldn't have been lost. Ning Luo is so weak. She might have died in the hands of the beasts. Yeah, her arms and legs are so thin. She's definitely dead. Luo will be fine, Gaines roared at the female beast men. His eyes were red. I won't let anything happen to Luo. I'll go find her immediately. You don't have to worry about me. He came back to ask for help, but his companions seemed to be ostracizing Luo. After speaking, Gaines wanted to rush out, but Hei Lang slapped him to the ground. Seeing that Gaines wanted to get up and rush out of the tribe, Hei Lang could only beat him up a few more times. When Gaines couldn't fight back anymore, he transformed back into his human form. Gaines, how are you going to find her if you keep running around like this? Hei Lang said. We'll send a group of people to find Ning Luo today. The rest will follow the original plan. The changes that Ning Luo had brought to the tribe were still important to Hei Lang. Moreover, the other party was Gaines' female. Gaines was the second strongest warrior in the tribe. If something really happened to Ning Luo, he would be devastated. The beast horde was coming. If Gain could not pull himself together, how could he protect the tribe? It was better to take this opportunity to find Ning Luo. It had to be said that at this moment, Hei Lang was still a qualified tribal leader. His considerations were fair and thorough. Gaines calmed down and accepted Black Wolf's arrangement. At this moment, Yin Yarrow came out. Tangua hurriedly ran in front of him. High Priest, are we leaving? Yes. He glanced at Hei Lang. Sure enough, Hei Lang walked over and stood in front of Tangua. He asked, Agwagwa, you want to follow the High Priest to gather herbs? Last night, the High Priest had told him about it. Yeah. Then I'll send another warrior to follow you. Yin Yarrow didn't reject. With an extra Agwagwa, if something really happened, it would be less dangerous to have an extra member. Hei Lang looked at Tangua who was beside Yin Yarrow and felt that something was wrong. However, he never thought that Tangua would like the High Priest. In the hearts of the beast men, the High Priest was a living god. They couldn't offend him. Chapter 657. Yin Yarrow realized that it was a good decision to bring this little girl along. Why didn't he realize that Agwagwa was so smart? She could recognize the herbs he taught her and pick them herself. She was much smarter than the other beast men in the tribe. After knowing that this little girl was smart, Yin Yarrow didn't hide anything. He taught Tangua how to identify the herbs while picking them. In fact, Tangua didn't need to learn, but she was Agwagwa now. She was happy to be with Yin Yarrow like this. It was a special pleasure. At least the tribe was relatively peaceful now. When the sky darkened, they prepared to return to the tribe. Before the sky turned dark, the members who went to look for Ning Luo all came back. Even Hei Lang, who didn't want to come back, carried Gaines back and threw him into the cave. He even asked someone to watch over him in case he sneaked out at night and got into danger. For the next few days, Tangua went out with Yin Yarrow to pick herbs. When the members of the tribe heard that Tangua could recognize herbs, they all cheered. They thought that she was very smart and looked at her with much more respect. In their eyes, if a Gwugwa could learn the skills of the high priest, it would be a good thing for the entire tribe. Every day, members went out to look for Ning Luo. Gradually, Heilang gave up. Only Gaines and Ari Mo were left. Maybe it was because Ari Mo was still looking for Ning Luo at this time. Gaines' attitude towards him was much better. It was because of this that Gaines didn't object when Ning Luo fell in love with Ari Mo in the future. He even helped Gaines integrate into the tribe. There was still no news of Ning Luo. Gaines looked lifeless. Many female beast men in the tribe were worried, but none of them could persuade Gaines. They were even more dissatisfied with Ning Luo. It had been more than half a month. There was more than a month before the beast tied. Tangwa narrowed her eyes. In a few days, Gaines should be able to find Ning Luo. She thought for a while and ran to Yin Yaro's stone house. She opened the door with familiarity. She didn't need Yin Yaro's permission. After all, they were already very close. Yin Yaro saw her running in and seemed to be used to it. He only said, "Agwugwa, why are you so early today?" "Because I wanted to see the high priest earlier." Yin Yaro's heart skipped a beat. But he calmed down quickly. There was still a smile in his eyes. Besides this, there must be something else. "High priest, you're so smart." She sat cross-legged in front of the stone table and supported her chin with both hands. She stared at Yin Yaro without blinking until Yin Yaro's ears turned red. She then said, "High priest, the weather is very good. How about we go out and play? It's dangerous outside. Didn't you want to pick more herbs?" Yin Yaro asked with interest, "Are you going to use this as an excuse to go out and play?" "Of course not." Tangwa took out a piece of animal skin from the animal skin bag and put it in front of Yin Yaro with a smile. "When I went out to play before, I found something good in the cave. I saw the pattern drawn on it. It looks a bit like the herbs we picked. High priest, take a look." However, the words in the beast world were similar to the oracle bone inscriptions, but they were slightly different. In order to draw some useful herbs on this piece of animal skin, she put in a lot of effort. She tried her best to use the beast world's weird words and abstract drawings. Chapter 658. Yin Yaro took the animal skin. He didn't care about it at first, but when he saw the words and pictures on it, his expression became serious. He read it from the beginning to the end seriously. After he finished reading, there was only surprise in his eyes. He stood up with the animal skin in his hand. He couldn't maintain his aloof attitude anymore. He looked at Tangwa with slight excitement. "Agwugwa, where did you find this?" "I found it in a cave." "High priest, do you want to go to the cave with me to dig for treasures?" The system host was broken. Yin Yaro thought of the content recorded on the animal skin. It was all herbs that the beastmen could use, as well as the usage of the herbs. It even recorded the treatment of some minor illnesses. He didn't know if there was only one piece of animal skin, or if there were other important things in the cave. But no matter what, he had to go and take a look. "Let's go now." He walked in front of Tangwa, grabbed her wrist directly and pulled her outside. Tangwa followed behind him with a smile. The warriors had already gone out during the day. Yin Yaro didn't tell Heilang that he was going to pick herbs today. So there were no males in the tribe at this time. He pulled Tangwa and walked outside. When they were out of the tribe, he asked, "Where are we going?" "Let me lead the way, High Priest." Yin Yaro just remembered that he seemed to have pulled this little female all the way. He was a little embarrassed. When he was about to let go, Tangwa said, "High Priest, just hold my hand." Could Yin Yaro say no? "Hold my hand, in case we get lost," Tangwa said to him with a smile. "If I get lost, you won't be able to find me." Yin Yaro, who was still a little resistant, quickly held Tangwa's hand tightly when he heard this. He had to hold her hand firmly. That sentence, "if I get lost, you won't be able to find me," made him panic inexplicably. He was so panicked that he held her hand and didn't want to let go. When he held this little hand in his palm, he felt that the panic disappeared. He glanced at the smiling little female beside him from the corner of his eyes. Thinking of the days they spent together, His lips curled into a smile. Agwagwa. Ari. This time, hearing such an obedient answer, Yin Yarrow had no intention of avoiding it. He only felt that this answer was really sweet to the bottom of his heart. Don't go out alone in the future. It's dangerous outside. All right. Tangua looked at Yin Yarrow with a look that said, I'll listen to you. Yin Yarrow looked away. Even his ears were red. Fortunately, his hair was down, so Gwugwa wouldn't notice it. Only the sound of two people shuttling through the bushes could be heard. After a long while, Yin Yarrow spoke again, Agwugwa. Hey, High Priest, what do you want to say? Yin Yarrow's eyes were full of smiles. He held her even tighter. If you want to come out next time, remember to tell me. I'll accompany you. The system had taken the bait. Sure. The corners of Tangua's lips curled up slightly, and her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled at Yin Yarrow. That beautiful little face really made Yin Yarrow dizzy. But he did not look away. Instead, he looked straight at her. He didn't have any special thoughts about the previous Gwugwa. He cared about her, but her parents sacrificed themselves for the tribe, so he should take care of her. But now, he had fallen into the sweet world that a Gwugwa created intentionally or unintentionally. He couldn't get out anymore, and he didn't want to get out. Chapter 659. That's the cave. Tangua pointed at a cave not far away, but Yin Yarrow looked at the direction she was pointing at, but he didn't see the cave she was talking about. Just when he was feeling confused, he heard Tangua say, I used grass to cover the cave, I think there might be something else inside, I'll come again next time. Our Gwugwa is very smart. Tangua wasn't modest at all, that's true. Yin Yarrow's eyes were smiling, he didn't think she was boasting, his praise was sincere, our Gwugwa was really smart. No matter what it was, she could learn it after being taught once. He dared to say that our Gwugwa's meat soup and roasted meat were the best in the entire tribe, even Ning Luo couldn't compare. The system was a wily old fox. Tangua brought Yin Yarrow to the front of the cave, waved her arm and said, High Priest, you can let go of my hand now, I won't get lost here. She said it as if he was the one who insisted on holding her hand. Yin Yarrow let go of her hand, the warm little hand left his palm, he felt a little disappointed. All right, he had to admit, he really wanted to keep holding this little hand and not let go. Tangua pushed the grass aside. There was indeed a cave as tall as a person. Looking in from the entrance of the cave, she could see that the space inside was still quite big. She smiled as she looked at the cave. In order to dig out this cave, she had spent a lot of effort. There was no spiritual energy in this world that could be used for cultivation, so she could only rely on some of the things she had collected in the system space and do it herself. Next time when she transmigrated to the modern world, she should buy a few excavators. It would save her the trouble of digging a cave. The system host was afraid that she was a demon, she might as well read another Lanxiang. High Priest, let's go in. Tangua climbed in first. She was the one who dug this hole, so she knew very well whether there was any danger inside or not. Yin Yarrow didn't even have time to stop her, he could only quickly climb into the cave with her. After entering the cave, they realized that the space inside was even bigger than it looked from the outside. Yin Yarrow looked at the cave and fell into deep thought. This was a very secretive place, and it could be considered a safe place. If the members of the tribe were to hide in the cave during the beast tide, and then seal the entrance outside, he was not sure if it would work. Tangua saw Yin Yarrow's eyes and knew what he was thinking. She didn't want to fight with those wild beasts when the time came. She definitely needed to find a safe place before she could think of a way to get out of this cave. Of course, this was not the only purpose. The second purpose was that she wanted to give him something that was of interest to Yin Yarrow. The time was getting closer and closer. She needed to think more. The system thought that the great host had forgotten to plot when she was in love. It turned out that she was plotting while she was in love. She was really capable. Didn't her brain get tired? The cave was only as tall as a person, and it was only enough for one person to pass through. Therefore, the light in the cave was very dim. The two of them groped around and searched around. Yin Yarrow searched more carefully. As expected, he quickly found some animal skins, as well as some unusual things. He kept them all. In the end, he actually touched a loose rock on one of the walls of the cave. He pushed it lightly, and the rock actually fell down. He quickly retreated, not forgetting to pull Tang Guo behind him to protect her. Tang Guo was very satisfied with Yin Yao's reaction. She hugged his arm and asked, "What happened?" The system was a drama queen. Chapter 660. There seems to be a passageway here, said Yin Yao. He was a little hesitant about this passageway. He didn't know if there would be any danger inside. If he was alone, he would definitely go in without hesitation. But now, he had a Guogua by his side. If there was any danger, he didn't know if he could protect her. She wasn't an adult yet. Even if her strength was not bad, she still couldn't be compared to an adult orc. Then let's go and take a look. See if there's anything good. Before Yin Yao could answer, he was pulled into the passageway by Tang Guo. High Priest, let's go. A Guogua, there might be danger inside. I'm not afraid. Yin Yao was speechless. He was afraid. He was afraid that he couldn't protect her. High Priest, don't dawdle. What if there's something good inside? Tang Guo didn't care. She still left something good inside. How could they not go in? In the end, Yin Yao was still pulled into the passageway by Tang Guo. This time, he didn't need Tang Guo to say anything and held her. In the end, he thought that it would be easy to break apart if he held her, so he just held her small body in his arms. Regarding this, Tang Guo was very satisfied. Who said that orcs were rude and ungentlemanly? Yin Yao was especially gentlemanly. He was smart and knew what to do at this time. He was indeed a person who didn't have any memory after transmigrating. He had done well in every world. After walking for a while, they seemed to have arrived at the belly of the mountain. It was very spacious inside. There was even a hole at the top that allowed light to enter. He didn't know how it was done. Originally, he wasn't sure if orcs could hide here. Now, he was very sure that they could hide here when the beast tide came. He was a little excited. Perhaps, there would be no less orc tribe members this year. With the help of the weak light, Tang Guo saw the happiness on Yin Yao's face. She shook her head slightly. The more happy Yin Yao was for the orc tribe today, the more he would hate the tribe members in the future. Great system host, how could you do that? It's not about whether I can do it or not. I just want Yin Yao to see the choices of the members of the tribe clearly. If I help them avoid the monster horde this time, and they still choose Ning Luo in the future, Yin Yao won't pity them anymore. I just want to be more thorough. Didn't someone say that rebirth is another choice? This time, I want to see what the members of the tribe will choose if they choose again. Tang Guo smiled as she communicated with the system. She wanted to see if the human heart would take into account certain reasons and store a bit of kindness. This place is not bad. Yin Yao said, Agwugwa, let's go back. Inform the Black Wolf sect members as soon as possible to watch over this place. This is a good place. When the beast tide comes, the members of our tribe will be able to avoid the danger. Tang Guo lowered her head and smiled. She was afraid that it would not be that easy. Yin Yao was in a good mood as he held Tang Guo's hand and walked out of the cave. The two of them used weeds to hide the entrance of the cave. This time, with Yin Yao's arrangement, it was hidden even deeper than before. With the brains of the orcs, it was impossible for them to guess that there was a cave here. After everything was done, the two of them took advantage of the fact that it was still early and didn't return to the tribe for the time being. They planned to pick some herbs back. It was rare for them to come out. As he walked further and further, he saw something inconceivable and heard some special sounds. Chapter 661. Hearing this voice, Yin Yao, who was squatting at the bottom of the cliff to pick herbs, froze. He subconsciously glanced at Tang Guo and found that she was looking in a certain direction with great interest. His face darkened immediately. Agwugwa. Hey, High Priest, what's the matter? Let's go. Tang Guo didn't want to. She didn't expect to meet Ning Luo here by coincidence. Moreover, it was when Ning Luo was playing with Shuang Dingding. How could she not go and enjoy herself? High Priestess, that voice sounds familiar. Tangwa pretended not to understand what was going on over there. The reason why she was looking over there with interest was because the grass over there was a bit deep. Not only were there strange sounds coming from the grass, but the grass was also swaying. There was no wind around, so she couldn't help but look at it with interest. Was she curious? The system didn't want to say anything. High Priest, let's go and take a look. Tangwa pulled Yin Yaro's hand. Of course, Yin Yaro didn't want to go over. He pulled Tangwa into his arms and whispered, "Don't go and disturb them." "Ah, what do you mean disturb?" "I'm just saying hello." Tangwa smiled. "I think that female's voice sounds familiar." "High Priest, are you sure you don't want to go and take a look?" Yin Yaro didn't look too good. "Agwagwa, you can't go over at this time." "Why?" Yin Yaro had no choice but to whisper in her ear, "They're mating. If we go over at this time, we'll anger the male. He'll think that we're going to fight for his female and attack us. Then let's take a peek." "High Priest, I still think that we know that female." Tangwa saw that Yin Yaro really didn't want to go, so she patted her head and said, "Ah, I remember now. High Priest, I think that voice sounds like Ning Luo's." After saying that, Yin Yaro hesitated. If it was really Ning Luo, they should go and confirm it. After thinking for a while, he hugged Tangwa tightly, as if he didn't want her to go over. "Then let's wait first. We'll go after they're done." "Okay." Actually, she didn't really want to see. There was nothing to see. After that, the fight in the underbrush became more and more intense. The little grass fell down because of the two people's torment. The two people were really crazy. Maybe he thought that there was no one here, so he released the craziest nature of human and beast. Tangwa listened with great interest, while Yin Yaro's expression became unnatural. Moreover, listening to that voice, his mind was actually thinking about the little female in his arms. Then, his face stiffened and he hurriedly chased the wild thoughts out of his mind. Agwagwa was still underage. Tangwa smiled and communicated with the system. "Do snakes really have double penises?" "It should be. Isn't it written in the book? Can words and live broadcasts be the same?" Tangwa propped up her chin. "I'm a little curious. How did Ning Luo accept it?" Chapter 662. "Have you, High Priest?" Tangwa cupped her face and looked at Yin Yaro seriously. Yin Yaro said unnaturally, "I don't have a female." "Just because you don't have a female doesn't mean you haven't mated." System, host, please let your family off. High Priest, answer me quickly. Have you mated before or not? Yin Yaro really couldn't handle the questions. He thought that if he didn't answer clearly, this little female would mistakenly think that he had mated with a female before. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and answered with a tense face. "No." "Oh, High Priest, so you haven't mated with a female before. Then do you want to mate with a female?" Yin Yaro's face was about to crack. Agwagwa. Sigh. He looked at this little face of Ku. She was obviously very obedient, but why did the questions she asked make things difficult for him? He hugged Tangwa and said in a deep voice, "Don't ask such boring questions in the future." "All right." Tangwa glanced at him and shifted her gaze to the swaying bushes in the distance. She stared at them without blinking and stopped talking to Yin Yaro. Yin Yaro was a little confused now. Did he say something harsh and provoke her? Was she angry? Thinking of the questions she asked, Yin Yaro was a little confused. How could she ask such questions so directly? He was different from the group of boorish orcs in the tribe. Agwagwa. But she stopped talking and was quiet for a while. He really wasn't used to it. The voices over there were very noisy, but he only felt that when she stopped talking, the whole world was quiet. He didn't like this kind of silence and couldn't help but call out. "I didn't think about it before." Yin Yaro answered with a sullen face. His bottom line was defeated by Agwagwa. Tangwa turned around and looked at him with a confused face. "High Priest, are you calling me?" "Yes." Yin Yaro nodded. Agwagwa. "High Priest, what do you want to say?" Tangwa didn't show any expression on her little face. She looked like she was really angry. This made Yin Yaro even more confused. His little female was really angry. How could he coax her? Yin Yarrow gritted his teeth and leaned close to her ear. He was stunned for a moment. Why was a guagua's fragrance so fragrant? He often heard the male orcs in the tribe talking about how many female orcs had body odor. They didn't hate that kind of body odor, but he was sure that the body odor they were talking about was definitely not the fragrance of flowers. High Priest, what do you want to say? Yin Yarrow realized that she really stopped smiling. He took a deep breath and said, I never thought about it before. You haven't thought about anything? Tangua pretended not to know, but in her heart, she was already laughing wildly. It was too funny, really funny. Yin Yarrow had no choice. His face was filled with helplessness. He hugged her tightly and said in an especially low voice, I've never thought about mating with a female. His voice was very emotional. When it rang in Tangua's ears, it was like something was tickling her heart. Oh, I see. Tangua put on a smiling face, which made Yin Yarrow feel relieved. Before he could relax, he heard Tangua ask again, then High Priest, have you thought about it now? When he heard this question, Yin Yarrow's face froze. He didn't understand why he told a guagua that he never thought about it before. Wasn't it obvious that he wanted her to ask the latter part of the story? High Priest. Yin Yarrow looked at the little female who was looking at him eagerly. He thought that since he had already said such despicable words, it wouldn't matter if he answered again. Yes. Unexpectedly, it was exactly what he wanted. Tangua's eyes lit up. That expression made Yin Yarrow feel uneasy. He heard her ask, who are you thinking about? Chapter 663. Yin Yarrow's ears were already red. If he didn't try to control himself, his face would have turned red as well. Just as he was hesitating if he should tell the truth, Tangua turned her head to the other side and spoke. High Priest, they seem to have finished. Yin Yarrow looked over as well. Xiao Kaoer was no longer swaying, and the seductive voice had also stopped. I wonder if it's Ning Luo. Tangua's back was facing Yin Yarrow. She had an amused smile on her face. Flirting a little was enough. Don't scare her away. The system was so naughty. Yin Yarrow pressed his palm on the back of Tangua's head. The two of them secretly hid in the bushes and stared ahead. Soon, they saw a tall, strong, and handsome beastman standing up. He was carrying Ning Luo, whose face was red and looked weak. They looked at each other. Tangua whispered, it's really him. Yin Yarrow didn't say anything. Viggo was probably still immersed in the beauty from before. He had a happy smile on his face as he carried Ning Luo and left. After their figures disappeared, Tangua and Yin Yarrow stood up. High Priest, let's go back. Yin Yarrow came back to his senses and nodded. Now that he knew Ning Luo was fine, he wasn't optimistic. With Gain's personality, if he knew that Ning Luo had another beastman's female, he would definitely challenge the other party. He held Tangua's hand and slowly walked towards the direction of the tribe. At the same time, he was wondering if he should tell Gain about this. Tangua smiled and communicated with the system. Yin Yarrow is worrying too much. Gain will meet Ning Luo soon. The system was shocked. It flipped through the plot and sorted out the plot seriously. When it saw a few places and scenes described, it felt like it was fucked. It turned out that Gain saw Viggo carrying Ning Luo back to the residence today. At that time, Ning Luo was still weak and her face was red. Everyone knew what happened. The two beastmen naturally couldn't help but fight in such a hellish situation. In the end, it was Ning Luo who calmed their anger. Then, Ning Luo blamed himself and became thinner and thinner. The two beastmen couldn't stand it anymore and slowly compromised, deciding to share a beautiful Ning Luo. After returning to the tribe, Yin Yarrow couldn't help but return to the stone house to study the animal skin he found in the cave, as well as some other special-looking things. Tangua tactfully did not disturb them. Instead, she returned to her cave to sleep. She decided to take a nap first, in case the tribe was too noisy for her to sleep at night. When the sun set, Black Wolf brought the members of the tribe back. Gaines did not come back. Recently, he had been looking for Ning Luo, so he did not go out to hunt with them. Not long after Hei Lang returned, he was called over by Yin Yao. Tang Guo was sitting at the entrance of the cave. She could clearly see Hei Lang walking out of the stone house. Her slightly cold face could not help but show some joy. Then, he called all the members of the tribe and announced in public, "A Guogua has found a cave. There are 2 large spaces in the belly of the mountain. The high priest has confirmed that they can accommodate all of our tribe. Moreover, there was still space left. If they took advantage of this time to open up some more space, they could store food. The beast tide would last for 5 to 15 days. As long as they could avoid the beast tide for half a month, the members of the tribe would not be in danger. When the time came, they would prepare enough food, water and fruits. They only needed to hide in the cave to survive this year's beast tide." Chapter 664. When the tribesmen heard the news, they all cheered excitedly. "Really, Chief? Is there really such a big space that can accommodate all of our tribesmen? The high priest wouldn't lie to us." Yin Yarrow stood at the side and quickly added, "You should thank Aguagua. She was the one who found this cave. Aguagua is really amazing. Yes, Aguagua can actually find such a good place. Aguagua is the smartest female." The tribesmen were full of praises. Tangua stood beside Yin Yarrow with a faint smile on her face. She didn't say anything and looked high and mighty. No one found it strange. Aguagua was smart, but she was also really arrogant. Other than Ollie, she didn't like to play with the other tribesmen. The orc's reason for this was that Aguagua lost her parents when she was young. She was a loner, so they didn't mind. Because of this good news, the tribesmen set up a fire that night. Now that they were used to cooking meat soup every day, they weren't so afraid of fire anymore. They set up a fire and roasted the meat of the wild beasts on the fire. The delicious smell filled the entire tribe. At this time, they were so excited that they forgot that Jen hadn't returned yet. As night fell, the orcs of the Lado tribe stood in a circle around the fire. The female orcs put on their most beautiful animal skin dresses and wore their most beautiful animal bone necklaces. The male orcs also surrounded the newest and cleanest animal skin and jumped around the fire happily. They sang a strange tune. It wasn't like what Tangua heard in the modern world, nor was it like what she heard in the ancient world. The tune of these songs was perturbed. It sounded simple, but it was difficult to sing it accurately. Luckily, these orcs seemed to be born with the ability to understand such songs. No matter if they were young orcs or adult orcs, they could all hum it. They partied until midnight before excitedly returning to their respective residences to rest. The chief said that they still had to occupy the cave tomorrow. The extra food stored in the tribe also had to be moved there. There was only a little more than a month left before the beast tide. The tribesmen who used to be worried every day all went to sleep with smiles on their faces tonight. Early in the morning, Tangua heard the noise outside. She just opened her eyes when Ollie's voice sounded at the entrance of the cave. "Aguagua! Aguagua, come out and move your things." Tangua came to the door and saw Olga happily holding a lot of jerky. Of course, her attention was attracted by the 2 male orcs beside Olga. When she saw the 2 male orcs, she was surprised. Using the modern aesthetic standards, the 2 male orcs had outstanding figures and appearances. However, in this era, it was undoubtedly the type that was least welcomed by females. "Aguagua, this is my male, why are you staring at him?" Olga pouted. "If you want to find 2, I'll accompany you to other tribes after we move. They're already mine." Olga pointed at herself, and then at the 2 tall and handsome male orcs beside her. "Aguagua, don't be fooled by their thin and weak looks. I saw with my own eyes that they killed a wild beast in just a short while when they joined forces. They are very powerful. The one on the right is Mill, and the one on the left is Mick." Olga introduced her to Tangua and then said to the 2 of them, "Aguagua, my good friend and the smartest female beastman." Chapter 665. Olga, don't worry. I won't fight with you for a male. We're friends. How could I do such a thing? Olga nodded hurriedly. Yes, we're friends. You wouldn't do such a thing. Olga believed Tangua's words. She remembered how she was almost persuaded by the tribesmen to find trouble with Ning Luo because of Gaines. Ever since she went to other tribes and saw Mill and Mick, she felt that Gaines was just SOSO. She didn't know if it was because she had been with Guogua for a long time, but now she actually felt that Mill and Mick were quite good-looking. They were even better than Gaines. Gaines was tall and strong with bulging muscles. He looked very explosive. Mill and Mick were especially thin and weak among the male beastmen and weren't very popular. If not for that, they would have been fancied by other female beastmen long ago. However, she happened to see the two of them killing wild beasts that day. At that time, she felt that these two beastmen were very powerful. She went up to them to get to know them and followed them back to the tribe. They were brothers and greeted her very warmly. She didn't know if the two of them were especially despised by the female beastmen, but they didn't dare to get too close to her, as if they were afraid that she would be angry. The more she interacted with them, the more Olga felt that these two guys were quite nice. Although they were very thin and didn't suit her original intention, they were not powerless. Olga decided to bring them back to the tribe then. It was easy to bring them back. Almost no one objected. Even the female beastmen looked at her as if she had picked up some trash that they didn't want. On the other hand, the male beastmen were happy for Mill and Mick. Some even patted them on the shoulder and smiled. "You finally have a female." They said it as if no one wanted them. Olga patted her head. No one wanted them, right? On the way back, these two guys were much warmer to her. They were very careful at the start, but now they were especially close to her. No matter where she went, they would follow her. No matter what she wanted, they would do it immediately. Olga thought about Gaines. Gaines had always been cold to her. She had always been the one who stuck close to him and treated him well. She liked Mill and Mick even more. After returning to the tribe, she heard that Guogua had found a cave to hide in and the tribesmen were preparing to move. She was so happy that she couldn't help but introduce her spouse to her best friend. "Miller, you can carry my things. Mick, you can help a Guogua." Olga was very generous and let Mick help Tangua. Mick quickly nodded. "Yes, my Ollie." Olga smiled happily. "When I'm done, I'll cook some meat soup for you. I've collected a lot of animal skins. When I'm free, I'll sew some for you to wear during the cold weather." Mikkel and Mill looked at each other, and their gazes grew warmer and warmer. Their eyes were glued to Olga's body. Their females were so nice. Ever since they were young, they had been despised. When they reached adulthood, no females were willing to accept them. Even if they could defeat other males, those females would think that they were too ugly and reject them. They also did not believe that they were really powerful. Their Olga was different. Olga never looked at them with disdain. Ever since they met Olga, they only felt that the sun was especially warm and they had the energy to do anything. When Ollie asked them to go with her, they did not hesitate. When they heard that Ollie was going to cook broth and sew clothes for them, their faces were filled with silly smiles. Chapter 666. The whole tribe was busy. Yin Yarrow didn't have many things. He had a high status, so Hei Lang sent 2 warriors to help him carry them. When he arrived at Tangua's place, he saw her and Olga chatting happily at the entrance of the cave. "Olga is back." Yin Yarrow heard from Tangua that Olga had given up on Gain and was going to other tribes to find a strong male. Seeing Olga's happy face, she must have found one. They heard some movement in the cave, and then they saw Miku walking out with many things in his arms. When he saw Yin Yarrow, he was stunned. Olga quickly said, "This is our high priest." "High priest. This is Miku, my spouse." Olga smiled brightly. "I asked Miku to come and help Guogua. She doesn't have a spouse, and she's still so young. She won't be able to carry so many things. High priest, Miku may not look as strong as other beastmen, but he's very strong. He's very powerful." Olga said proudly. Miku also had a silly smile on his face as he placed the things on the wooden board. His Olga was so cute. Yin Yarrow nodded and walked into the cave to look around for a while. He started to help Tangua pack her snacks, dried fruits, and the beautiful necklace made of animal bones and the various dresses she made herself. He put all these into a bag sewn with animal skin. Olga, who was originally showing off her husband, looked at the high priest, who had a high status, helping Tangwa move things. Her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She opened her mouth wide in disbelief. Who in the tribe dared to order the high priest around? Who in the tribe dared to ask the high priest to work? Even the high priest's own belongings had to be moved away by the warrior leader. So, high priest, what are you doing? Those are Gwugwa's things. Did you move the wrong things? Gwugwa, do you want to take all these away? This sentence was undoubtedly a huge blow to Olga. The high priest knew that these things belonged to Gwugwa and was here to help Gwugwa move things. Oh God, she must have seen wrongly. She bit her lip and tugged at Tangwa. She whispered, "Ah Gwugwa, why did the high priest help you move things?" Tangwa chewed on the dried fruit and said with a smile, "Because I'm underage and weak, the high priest sympathized with me and came to help me move things. I found the cave yesterday. Hasn't the high priest always taken good care of me?" Ollie blinked and let go of her hand. That's right. Gwugwa lost her parents when she was very young, and the high priest did take special care of her. Every winter, the high priest would give a lot of animal skins to Gwugwa and give his food to Gwugwa. Olga breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, Gwugwa was so thin and small. The high priest just took special care of her. The high priest was the person with the highest status in the Orc tribe. He could relieve their pain and illness. Helping Gwugwa move things was not a big deal. Olga brainwashed herself. She was not surprised to see what Yin Yarrow did next. Instead, she started to talk with Tangwa about what happened in the other tribes. The pile of dried meat she was holding before was the delicious food she brought back for Tangwa. She planned to give it all to Tangwa, her best friend. Soon, all of Tangwa's belongings were moved to the cave. Because she was the one who found the cave, the tribe members thought that she could choose a place and make a small space for her to live in. Chapter 667. The second choice was naturally Yin Yarrow. He chose to sit beside Tangwa, and Tangwa was very satisfied. After a few days, most of the tribe members had moved their things over. There were also many small spaces in the cave. They did not plan to live there for the time being, but there were beast men guarding it during the day. At this moment, they finally remembered Gaines. Gaines hasn't appeared for a few days. They were too busy and excited that they had forgotten about Gaines's existence. Now that they remembered, all the tribe members were worried. Did something happen to Gaines? Just as the tribe members were nervous, Ree pointed outside the tribe and shouted, "Isn't that Gaines and Ning Luo?" That's right, Gaines had brought Ning Luo back. Although Viggo treated Ning Luo well and Ning Luo liked Viggo, Gaines had lost a lot of weight because of her disappearance. This made Ning Luo's heart soften. Viggo had always been gentle to Ning Luo, but Ning Luo was only his. Gaines' appearance broke the peace and tore away his gentle facade. He was stronger than Gaines, and when they fought, Gaines was heavily injured. Viggo even wanted to take her away and leave Gaines where he was. He even wanted to kill Gaines. Ning Luo acted as if she did not know Viggo. In the end, she decided to let Gaines take her away secretly. Just like that, they returned to the tribe. Gaines was of course happy. When Mo saw Ning Luo return, he was also very happy. He quickly told her the good news, but Ning Luo was a little distracted. She was still thinking about how Viggo could be such a person. Viggo had always been gentle to her. Why did he suddenly become so fierce? It was so scary that she did not recognize him. When Gaines heard that the tribe had found a cave to take refuge in, he happily took Ning Luo in to pack up and prepare to move over. The cave inside is already full. You can only stay in the one outside. Gaines replied, "No problem." He did not have any objections. He had already found Ning Luo. He could even let her stay here. Just like that, after a few days, all the tribe members moved to the cave. Under Mo and Gaines' persuasion, Ning Luo temporarily forgot about Viggo and did not think about those unhappy things. When she heard that there would be a beast horde in a month, and that it might be dangerous to move to this location, Ning Luo forgot about Viggo. She did not want to die. Accompanied by Amo and Jane, she observed the area and asked what they should do if wild beasts rushed in. Should they build some walls around the area and set up some traps? This proposal was approved by all the members of the tribe. Even Hei Lang looked at Ning Luo in a new light. Agwugwa, don't go out to play these days. Hei Lang knew that Tangwa especially liked to run outside, so he specially reminded her, after the beast tide, you can go anywhere you want to play. After a pause, he said, you can also come and find me to accompany you. Tangwa nodded. She thought to herself that she should look for Yin Yarrow. Hei Lang would soon forget his love for Agwugwa and fall in love with Ning Luo. This female lead's love really caught him off guard. Unlike her, the man she was chasing was a shy guy. He was shy and arrogant, but he was quite cute. As the chief, Hei Lang was very busy. Although the members of the Lado tribe had a place to take refuge, their tribe still cooperated with other tribes. Chapter 668. When the horde of beasts came, the warriors of the Rodo tribe still had to go out and help the other tribes out of trust. He looked around the cave. It seemed that he still had to make some space. There would definitely be injured beast men, so they couldn't stay outside. They had to stay in a safer place. The members of the tribe got busy again. Ning Luo was also thinking about his own safety, so he came up with one suggestion after another. He even drew some of the weapons in his memory. At this time, there was no metal, so their weapons were made of stone and wood. Ning Luo suggested to make some weapons and traps out of wood. Tangwa sat outside all day, gnawing on dried fruits, chatting and laughing with Olga, secretly plotting in her heart. If she was handed over as Ning Luo by the members of the tribe, she would have to start smelting iron. Iron was too important. Actually, she was very eager to leave this place so that she could show off her skills. The Rodo tribe was so backward that there was nothing. She couldn't do anything. Of course, she didn't want to bring any good changes to the Rodo tribe. Don't forget that she was a vengeful person. Unless someone suggested to hand her over this time, the Rodo tribe would fight Hei Lang and Jane to stop her from being taken away. She could consider giving them a chance to atone for their sins. But would they? Tangwa smiled as she looked at the busy beast men. They were all smiling honestly and cutely. Dear host, I think that thinking about your cutie is the happiest thing. As its IQ got higher and higher, the system recalled those dark days and felt sour. It was a string of data. It shouldn't have human emotions, but for some reason, it had human emotions. Although the concern and worry was only for its host, it was still human emotions. I'm quite happy, said Tangwa. The system muttered to itself. You are quite happy, but you are happy because you can take revenge on them after mocking their final choice. This kind of happiness made him feel a little sad. It hoped that its host's happiness would always be warm and pure. For example, she was happy because the weather was good today. Yin Yarrow confessed to her and made her happy. She was happy because she ate some delicious food. The system felt a little awkward. It wasn't good to level up too quickly. In the past, he wouldn't have thought about this. He remembered that there was a world where the host was pushed into a sea of fire and burned to death. At that time, he didn't feel anything at all. The result of his analysis was that the host had completed this world's mission and they could proceed to the next world's mission. Even if she didn't shout or scream, even if she still had a smile on her face and endured the fire until she was reduced to ashes, he still didn't feel anything was wrong. At that time, he even said coldly, "Host, you can actually pass out." According to his data analysis, once one fainted, they would not feel any pain. It was clearly a kind reminder, but when the voice sounded, it was cold and emotionless. At that time, the host was still smiling, but it could be seen that her body was tense. She was enduring great pain. Her voice trembled as she said, "No, I want to remember. Remember something." At that time, he didn't understand. Chapter 669. Now that she understood and remembered the hatred, she didn't want to lose herself. No matter how dark it was, how painful it was, she had to be clear-headed. Even if she was destined to be a supporting female character, even if she couldn't distinguish the future, she had to remember this hatred in order to continue walking. But she would never be blinded by hatred. In a world full of despair, she would choose to die together with everyone. In a world with a trace of warmth, she wouldn't give up on living, unless she reached the end of her life. If it was a world with warmth from the beginning, she would definitely make this world better. When he thought about it again, he felt especially sad. If he was like a human, with a body and eyes, and could cry, he would probably cry for an entire day when he thought about every dark world. Host, how did you survive in the past? He thought in his heart, and unknowingly asked. He quickly changed his words, let's not talk about this. Host, I shouldn't have asked. Tangwa laughed. Tongzi, you're becoming more and more like a human. Sigh, I can't help it, I leveled up too quickly, I feel like a human too. He was very complicated, being like a human was good, but not good. Tangwa smiled, what's the point of thinking so much, I still haven't figured out your origin and factory address, if your program is messed up, I can't fix it. Host, you're joking, I don't think I'm bad. The system complained crazily, how could it be bad? It couldn't be bad. If it was bad, who could accompany the host forever? Thinking about that kind of scene, it felt very sad and wanted to cry. Sob, it was a system, it didn't even have tears, what was there to cry about? Agwagwa. Yin Yarrow walked over and sat beside her, what are you thinking about? I'm thinking about when the beast tide will come. Tangwa said, after the beast tide subsided, it would be time for Olga to get into trouble, then it would be time for her to leave this place. Calculating the time, it was less than half a year, it was actually quite fast. She glanced at Yin Yarrow and smiled, High Priest. What do you want to say? Yin Yarrow didn't avoid this beautiful little face, if it wasn't for the fact that they were surrounded by beast men, he might have wanted to touch it. Tangwa laughed more and more happily. Intuition told Yin Yarrow that the following words were not good. High Priest, I haven't finished answering your question from last time. What do you want? Before Tangwa could finish her question, Yin Yarrow stood up and glanced at the many curious tribesmen around him. His ears turned red. Agwagwa. Hey, High Priestess, are you going to answer me? Yin Yarrow clenched his fist. No. He bent down and whispered, next time, if you want to ask me a question, ask me in private. Don't do it in front of so many members. Tangwa thought that he would refuse. She did not expect him to say that. She was overjoyed. Okay, I'll ask you alone in the future. I'll go to your place. Yin Yarrow's heart was tickled. He quickly stood up, turned around, and entered the cave. I still need to study the animal skin I got last time. Actually, he was almost done studying it. He walked in quickly, afraid that the little female would chase after him and ask loudly, High Priest, who do you want to mate with? When the time comes, you don't have to guess, they will definitely attract the attention of all the members. The Lado tribe had settled down for the time being. One night, Gain sneakily brought the shy Ning Luo out. The black wolf, who was not asleep, also opened his eyes. Perhaps because he was worried, he quietly followed behind them. Chapter 670. What happened next was something Hei Lang didn't expect. Under the moonlight, Ning Luo's naked body glowed. He shouldn't have been hiding in the dark, but when he saw her shy expression, he couldn't take his eyes off her. Ning Luo's performance these days was really attractive and he admired her. She was a very weak female, but she was very intelligent. Not only did she teach them how to make useful weapons and traps, she even knew how to treat small injuries. The sharp knife she had brought a lot of convenience to the tribesman. He had never seen such a knife before. He didn't know what it was made of, but it was really sharp. He even thought that if the knife was bigger, they wouldn't have to be afraid of wild beasts anymore. If a beastman had a knife like this, he would be able to deal with a wild beast easily. With the help of the moonlight, he saw the other side of this female. Her fair and delicate body attracted his attention. She was already very attractive, but now, she attracted him even more. He forgot that he had to wait for another female to grow up. When he saw her being covered by Gain's strong body, He really wanted to be the one covering her and not Gaines. He wanted to rush up and push Gaines away. Hei Lang only came back to his senses when it was over. He hid in the darkness and watched as Ning Luo was carried in by Gaines. He stood in the same spot and enjoyed the cool breeze for a long time, trying to clear his mind. Luo Luo is very beautiful, right? It was Arimo. Hei Lang turned around and frowned. Arimo, why are you here? Chief, why are you here? Arimo smiled. Don't you think Luo Luo isn't pretty? No. Then she's pretty, Arimo said. The first time I saw Luo Luo, I liked her very much. It's a pity that Gaines monopolized her. She's so pretty and smart. She's definitely not Gaines only. Chief, you think the same too, right? Hei Lang's expression darkened. He seemed to be upset because he was exposed. Arimo continued, Luo Luo is so good. It's not strange that Chief likes her. Personally, I hope that Chief can succeed. He couldn't compare to Gaines or Hei Lang. If Hei Lang made the first move, he would be able to take advantage of the situation and have Luo Luo together. This was what his sister, Ai, had told him. He thought about it and felt that it made sense. With Luo Luo's current situation, there must be more than one strong male who liked her. With another male by her side, the remaining males, such as him, would have a chance to gain her affection. If she liked him, he could stay by Luo Luo's side. As long as he could stay by her side, he would do anything. Don't let your imagination run wild, Hei Lang said before turning around and returning to the cave. Despite what he said, his mind kept replaying the beautiful scene he had seen under the moonlight. Even in his dreams at night, he dreamed of Ning Luo. The person who was with her had become him. Chapter 671. Tang Guo pretended not to know and continued, this time, the safety of our tribe members shouldn't be a problem. There are still 2 other tribes that are on good terms with us, Black Wolf said worriedly. We have already agreed to work together to resist this beast horde. Although our Leduo tribe is no longer afraid of the beast horde, we can't just ignore them. At this moment, Ning Luo came out of his room and happened to hear Black Wolf's words. Chief, you're really loyal. Ning Luo smiled. Since they're all friends, why don't you let them come here too? This way, we can look after each other. We can't live in the cave. Since we still have time, we can carve out some space outside and set up some traps around it. There shouldn't be any problems. Black Wolf nodded. I think so too. They're already on their way here. So you've thought of this too. His cold face unknowingly revealed a smile at Ning Luo. Tang Guo lowered her head slightly and smiled without saying anything. Chief, let's go out and see how we can carve out some space for our new members. Ning Luo thought of the cave inside the mountain. I think the space inside the cave is still very big and there aren't many people living there. Why don't we all squeeze together and carve out some more space? Isn't the distance between the rooms a little too far? Black Wolf stood quietly in the same spot and frowned. He seemed to be thinking about whether Ning Luo's suggestion was feasible or not. Previously, he thought that since the Leduo tribe was the one who discovered the cave, the Leduo tribe would definitely prioritize the members living in the cave. Unless the members of the other 2 tribes were injured in the fight against the beast horde. Only then would they settle in there. However, after hearing Ning Luo's words, he seemed to be convinced. Actually, the cave inside was really big and the distance between the rooms was quite far. They could definitely carve out more space. It might work. Before Black Wolf could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Tang Guo. Chief, if you're not afraid of the mountain collapsing, you can carve out a few more small spaces. It's best if you hollow out the entire mountain. This way, not to mention 3 tribes, even 30 tribes would be able to live there. The places that could be excavated were all calculated by her and Yin Yao. They were sure that the mountain would not collapse because of the holes they dug. If they dug a few more holes, no one could guarantee that there would be no danger. When the mountain collapsed, it would no longer be a matter of the beast horde. It would be a matter of whether the people of the Ledo tribe would be crushed to death by the mountain before the beast horde arrived. Apparently, Ning Luo didn't think of this. He looked a little uneasy and hurriedly apologized to Tang Guo, saying, "Agwugwa, I'm sorry. I didn't think so much. If we really cut open too much space, the mountain might really collapse. I'm just worried about those tribesmen who are on good terms with us. If we only let them live outside, will they be in danger?" Ning Luo felt a little regretful. She didn't expect the consequences to be so serious. She didn't want the mountain to collapse. There must be danger, Tangwa thought. However, the Lado tribe did not give up on each other even after they found a refuge. They even worked together to resist the beast horde. This was already extremely benevolent. Where did this Ning Luo come from? He already needed others to protect him, yet he still wanted to save the world. Chapter 672. Actually, even if we can't open up a new space, we can still fit a few more people in a small space. Ning Luo suggested another idea. "Chief, what do you think of this suggestion? The longest duration of the beast wave is half a month. It's not a big deal for everyone to squeeze in," Ning Luo said generously. Hei Lang looked at the female in front of him who seemed to be radiating kindness, and the feeling in his heart grew stronger. Ning Luo was Gain's female, and he shouldn't be thinking about this, but Ning Luo was too attractive. "Okay," Hei Lang replied. Tangwa secretly rolled her eyes. Love-struck, did he ever think about whether the members of the Laduo tribe would be willing? Ning Luo meant that a small space could fit a person, but they had to survive in this small space for half a month. If they squeezed, how many people could fit? Squeezing a little was fine, but she was afraid that it would become natural in the end. She turned around and went back to her place. Her small space wasn't big, and with some items, it couldn't fit in. It was just enough for one person to sleep in, and she didn't have to worry about others squeezing in with her. Yin Yao's identity was special, and no matter how retarded Hei Lang was, he wouldn't let others squeeze in with Yin Yao. As for those females who had several mates, they definitely wouldn't be able to squeeze in. Thinking about it, those who could squeeze in were those who didn't have mates, such as Ari Yi and Ari Mo. She wanted to see how Hei Lang would deal with the situation when the members of the other two tribes squeezed in. She wasn't worried at all, as it had nothing to do with her. She knew that as long as Hei Lang had feelings for Ning Luo, he would reject her no matter what he did. The originally meticulous and considerate Hei Lang didn't seem to exist. It was really strange, great host. Hei Lang seemed to be a smart person, so why did he feel that everything Ning Luo said made sense? It should be the female lead halo. Since Great Host was here, shouldn't her halo be slowly disappearing? Wasn't it always like this? Tangwa smiled. Maybe it's because I didn't do anything. The system could be like this. Wow, this was an eye-opener. When Hei Lang and Ning Luo were almost done discussing, he turned around and was about to talk to Tangwa, but he realized that Tangwa was already gone. Ning Luo saw Hei Lang's actions and asked, "Is Guogua angry?" "Our Guogua's temper is like this," Hei Lang quickly comforted him. "Ning Luo, you don't have to care about her." Ning Luo nodded and asked, "I heard from Gaines that Chief likes our Guogua. I also heard from other members of the tribe that Chief wants to wait for our Guogua to reach adulthood." She was smiling when she asked this question. She was also sizing up Hei Lang. She usually didn't pay much attention to him, but now that she was observing him carefully, she realized that Hei Lang was indeed the #1 warrior in the tribe. Not only was he handsome, but he was also very tall. In short, he was the kind that people couldn't take their eyes off of. Looking at her, her cheeks became a little red, and she quickly looked away. It's really lucky for a Guogua to be liked by the leader, but her temper is really not good. I wanted to be friends with her before, but she didn't want to. She doesn't like to play with other people. If Ning Luo wants to make friends, you can find other people in the tribe. They are all very friendly. After a pause, Hei Lang added, "Actually, I was just joking about waiting for Guogua to reach adulthood. Ning Luo, you don't have to listen to other people's nonsense." After saying that, he looked at Ning Luo nervously. Chapter 673. Oh, is that so? Ning Luo didn't notice anything unusual. No matter who it is, it must be her luck to be liked by the chief. Hei Lang almost blurted out, "If it was you, would you feel lucky too?" Luckily, he stopped himself at the last moment. "Chief, let's go out and do some work. The beast tide is less than a month away. We should get everything ready as soon as possible." Ning Luo was very nervous when he thought about how scary the beast tide was. "Okay." Ning Luo suggested to the chief to let the members of the other two tribes squeeze in the cave with us. Tang Guo sat in front of Yin Yarrow and supported her chin. "What does the high priest think?" Yin Yarrow frowned. "The cave isn't spacious. The other two tribes have 200 to 300 people in total. It's impossible to squeeze in." Yin Yarrow expressed his thoughts. "Why did the chief agree?" Tang Guo smiled. Maybe he felt that what Ning Luo said made sense. "The two tribes are our friends. Aren't you planning to build some houses outside to accommodate them?" Tang Guo replied. Ning Luo felt that it would be dangerous to leave his friends outside and felt bad. Yin Yarrow couldn't help but glance at Tang Guo this time. "Our Guo isn't satisfied." "Who would be satisfied?" Tang Guo said. "High priest, who do you think would be satisfied with this arrangement?" "I'm not worried. It's not like they can squeeze me in. If there's any conflict and we can't squeeze in, the chief will have to clean up the mess himself. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to avoid the beast tide this time," Yin Yarrow said. Tang Guo nodded. "Yeah, if it's just our tribe, it won't be a problem at all. Now that there's such a big commotion, the other tribes will definitely know about it. When the time comes, they won't let this place go." "Ah Guo. Hey, High Priest, what do you want to say?" Yin Yarrow couldn't help but knock on her head. He said gently, "When there are more people, come to my place." Hearing this, Tang Guo was very happy. "Is this guy worried about my safety?" Tang Guo was very happy. "High Priest, are you worried about me?" Yin Yarrow nodded helplessly. "Of course. Don't worry, High Priest. I've already made preparations." Under Yin Yarrow's puzzled gaze, Tang Guo pushed a part of the wall in the corner of Yin Yarrow's small space with her butt up. She actually pushed a stone away, which made Yin Yarrow stunned. The system was convinced. "High Priest, look, I've opened a small door here." Tang Guo clapped her hands and pointed to the hole. "If anything happens, I'll push the stone away and come to you. You don't have to worry." Yin Yarrow's expression was a little complicated. "A Guo, when did you do it?" "When you're not paying attention." Yin Yarrow was speechless. "High Priestess, don't be angry. I'm sick. In order to make it convenient for me to see you, I made this. This way, I can see you at any time. You can also move the sleeping beast skin to this position." "Alright, Guo, you don't have to express your thoughts." Yin Yarrow didn't say that he wanted to block this place. He went to Tang Guo's residence and pushed the stone in. He turned around and went into the residence. He took a piece of beast skin and hung it there, as if he wanted to block it. In the end, he returned to his position with an indifferent face, as if he didn't do anything. "High Priest, does this mean you agree?" Yin Yarrow's mouth twitched. What he did wasn't obvious enough. It looked like it had been buried underground for a long time. "Just use this." Yin Yarrow was a little surprised as he held his broadsword and chopped down at a wooden stick. Even though it was rusty, after being buried for a long time, he could still easily chop the wooden stick into two. "Is this enough?" "Enough." Yin Yarrow's face flashed with joy. "With this broadsword and a Guogua's method, it will definitely help us avoid the attack of the beast tide. Now we just need to get people to dig holes around here. If they dug a pit around the mountain and placed a sharpened wooden stick inside, no matter how many wild beasts there were, they would all die. Then what are these stones? In case the beasts rush over, push these stones down and smash them to death. There's no need to hide inside the mountain. The mountain is the safest place." Chapter 675. Our Guogua is very intelligent. Yin Yarrow patted Tang Guo's head, Then his hand moved to her cheek, and he couldn't help but pinch it. Tangua looked at him with a smile. "High Priest, is my face easy to pinch?" Yin Yarrow was so shocked that he quickly retracted his hand, his expression unnatural. "Let's go and tell the chief about this idea, and let the tribesmen prepare." Yin Yarrow held the big knife in one hand. Although he didn't know where Agwagwa found it, he didn't suspect anything. He held Tangua's hand out of habit, and the two of them went down the mountain. Tangua looked at the big knife, speechless. The weapons she collected were all very sharp, and they were all made of good materials. Among these treasured knives, it wasn't easy to find one that rusted easily. "Host, are you being kind this time?" "Kind? The tribesmen of the Laduo tribe can't die at this time." The system shivered. It couldn't afford to offend. It knew that she wasn't being kind, but it was still kind. At least she could save their lives. At this time, if the tribesmen of the Laduo tribe are in danger, Yin Yarrow will definitely help them regardless of his own safety. "How can my man risk his life for them?" "Oh, so this was the reason." Tangua smiled. "I've already saved their lives. I wonder what they will do when the time comes. Will their fates change? I'm looking forward to it." Yin Yarrow brought Tangua and found Hei Lang very quickly, and told him about Tangua's idea. Hei Lang was very surprised, and he led the tribesmen to start digging. They calculated the time. They wouldn't be able to dig all the way around the mountain, but it was still possible to dig the front. But if they did that, there would be danger behind the mountain. "There are rolling stones above. If there are beasts behind the mountain, we can use the rolling stones to deal with them," Tangua said. Hei Lang was relieved, and he organized the tribesmen to get busy. Ning Luo saw that the soles of the tribesmen's feet were often broken because of the work, so he made a pair of very simple shoes for Gaines. It didn't look good, but it could protect the soles of Gaines' feet. In the end, this method was popularized, and all the tribesmen made shoes out of animal skin and wore them. Later, they discovered that the soles of the shoes can be replaced with other things. For example, a wooden plank. The knife Tangua picked up before can be used to cut the plank into a thin piece and then tie the animal skin on it with a rope. It's more comfortable to wear. The soles made of wood didn't wear out, and could be replaced. They didn't need to change the animal skin often, so they were very liked by the beasts' tea. At this time, the tribesmen of the other two tribes arrived. Their eyes, they looked at Luo's eyes, and every time they looked at Luo's eyes, they were filled, S, and S help SSS, they S, and let's. TTTTST S. TTST. The hole was dug, the trap was set, and there was even a layer of withered grass on top. From afar, it really didn't look like there was a big hole inside. Inside the cave, the tribesmen of the other two tribes did squeeze in. Most of them were cubs who couldn't transform into human form, underage, and breastfeeding females. Perhaps because the beast tide was coming, there weren't any conflicts in the short period of time, and they got along quite well. Chapter 676. Ari was still a little dissatisfied. When she was digging for her residence, she asked her brother, Amo, to make it bigger. In the end, the black wolf took a look and arranged for a lactating female and her 3 cubs to move in. It was originally quite spacious, but after the mother and children moved in, it wasn't so spacious anymore. Ari smiled at them on the surface, but in her heart, she resented Ning Luo. Those little cubs howled every night, making her unable to sleep at all. Not only that, she went out during the day, and when she came back, she saw those cubs jumping around in her residence and biting her things. Her collection of food was all gnawed by these cubs, which made Ari so angry that she almost fainted. No matter how dissatisfied she was, she couldn't chase them out at this time. That would make the other members of the tribe look down on her. She thought that someone would be arranged to move in with Tangua, so she took the opportunity to ask Tangua. "My residence is very small. Chief came to see it and said that it can't accommodate one more person." Tangua said with a smile. When they were digging, she had measured it herself to make sure that it could only accommodate one person. Ari didn't believe it and followed her to see. In the end, it was true that it could only accommodate one person. Ari was satisfied. She couldn't help but complain to Tangguo, Ning Luo's idea is really not good. She tried to encourage Tangguo to go against Ning Luo. Guo, if your residence is big enough, other members will definitely move in. But we didn't move in. Tangguo smiled. Chief agreed to this. If Yi is still not satisfied, you can raise it with the chief. I don't want to go against chief's wishes, but I think that Ning Luo didn't consider our own members when she made this request. Yi sat beside Tangguo. Guo, why don't you talk to Ning Luo? Her request is a bit too much. Although her residence is in the cave outside, her residence is quite big and can accommodate several people. Tangguo narrowed her eyes. Why should I talk to her? Yi was speechless. She did not expect Tangguo to say that. Guo, don't you think Ning Luo is stealing your limelight? You were the one who came up with the idea of digging a pit as a trap. You were also the one who suggested using rolling stones to attack the beasts. You were also the one who picked up the sharp knife. However, Ning Luo seems to be more popular than you. I think it's necessary for you to prove your status and your contributions are more than Ning Luo's. The whole tribe should be grateful to you. How long has Ning Luo been in the tribe? He's already so popular. Guo, your parents are warriors of the tribe, and you're the daughter of a warrior. How can you lose to Ning Luo? Yi seemed to be defending Tangguo. No matter what Yi said, Tangguo didn't agree. Yi, if there's anything you're dissatisfied with, you can tell Ning Luo directly. Why must I do it? After talking for so long, her saliva was dry, but Tangguo was still unmoved. Yi didn't want to talk anymore. Now, she was also complaining about Tangguo in her heart. Forget it, Guo. How can you be so cowardly? Yi threw down these words and walked away in a fit of anger. Tangguo was chewing on a dried fruit and sitting at the door with a smile on her face. Within a few days, there was a rumor in the Leduo tribe that Guo hated Ning Luo. She thought that Ning Luo's arrival had stolen her limelight. Tangguo was still chewing on the dried fruit with a smile on her face. It was not a big deal. In the beginning, Yi had been trying to sow discord between them and Guo. Although she didn't manage to do so, she still achieved the same effect. Within a few days, no one cared about this rumor anymore. This morning, all the members were awakened by the vibration. Chapter 677. The beast tide is here. The beast tide is here. A terrifying rumbling sound echoed in the distance, and all the beastmen's expressions changed. They held sharpened wooden sticks in their hands, and all the strong male beastmen stood outside the cave, solemnly staring at the deep pit not far away. The top of the deep pit was supported by branches that were cut off and covered by withered grass. It looked no different from the other places in the forest. Although the rumbling sound was loud, it was still very far from here. Every time the beast tide happened, the wild beasts that came from nowhere would go crazy. They would charge at the humans, tear them apart, and bite their flesh. Every orc tribe only knew that the beast tide was terrifying, but they never understood why it happened every year. These wild beasts seemed to be able to find them no matter what and caused countless casualties. Although they were well prepared this time, they were still worried and afraid when facing the beast tide. Ning Luo was placed in the cave by Gaines. In order to prevent the orcs from going extinct, they would prioritize protecting the female orcs. Male beast men were born to protect every female. This was their belief. Tangguo had already climbed up the mountain when no one was paying attention. Not long after, Yin Yarrow came up and sat beside her naturally. Guo. Hey, High Priest, do you have something to say to me at this moment of life and death? Tangguo asked with a smile. She looked at the direction of the rumbling sound in the forest. The place where the beast tide passed by also stirred up a cloud of dust in the forest, as if something had exploded inside. She looked at the cloud of dust rushing in all directions. One of the clouds was rushing towards their mountain. She held her chin and thought. These wild beasts obviously couldn't see where they were, but how could they accurately find their location? It was really strange. Guo, you're distracted. Yin Yarrow reached out and knocked on her forehead. He didn't put his hand down. Instead, he placed his hand on her head and gently stroked it, as if he was stroking a kitten. High Priestess, do you have something important to tell me? For example. Tangua's lips curved into a smile. You want to tell me who you want to mate with, right? The corner of Yin Yarrow's mouth froze. A good atmosphere was ruined by a guagua. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But this time, he didn't avoid it. He pinched her little face, and a smile appeared on his face. Yes, he said. Tangua's eyes lit up, and the corners of her mouth curled up. Who is it? A guagua. Ien, High Priestess, what did you call me for? It's you, guagua. Yin Yarrow's gaze became gentle. His palm had already covered the back of Tangua's head. He looked into her eyes and said seriously again, I said, this person is you, a guagua. Do you understand? Tangua couldn't ignore this kind of seriousness. As the rumbling sound got closer and closer, a brilliant smile appeared on her beautiful face. I know, that person is me, the High Priest, isn't it? Yes, it's you. Tangua giggled and hugged Yin Yarrow's arm. She tilted her head and said, High Priest, you finally admitted it. A guagua, are you sick? Yes, I am. Tangua raised her chin. I really have an illness where I feel uncomfortable without seeing you for a day. I even miss you. Hearing this, Yin Yarrow laughed. He looked at the approaching cloud of dust in the distance. After the beast tide passes, I'll leave for a while. Chapter 678. Where are you going? Asked Tangua. In the book, it was written that after every beast tide, Yin Yarrow would leave the tribe for a period of time, roughly 1 to 2 months to half a year. As for what he was going to do, in the first half of the book, there wasn't much description of Yin Yarrow. His origin and ending weren't explained at all. Yin Yarrow paused and kept his smile. I'm going to investigate a secret. What secret? He knocked on Tangua's forehead. Agua is really curious. The secret of the beast tide. He didn't choose to hide it. They had already confessed their feelings to each other just now. She wasn't an adult yet, so there was no need to rush. When she was an adult, they would hold the formal ceremony. Tangua was surprised. The secret of the beast tide? Yes. Yin Yarrow nodded and looked at the rolling dust that was still approaching. I've been through many beast tides. I should say that I've been through countless beast tides with my father since I was young. Once, my father realized that there was something wrong with the beast tide that appeared once a year. No matter where the tribe members hid, those beasts would rush towards them. What was even stranger was that no matter how badly the tribe was hurt, there would always be some people left behind in the end. The beasts that were obviously ferocious retreated quickly as if they had received some kind of order. When my father was still alive, he would look for the secret of the beast tide every year, said Yin Yarrow in a low voice, but many years ago, he went out once and never came back. I only found records about the beast tide in his residence and inherited everything from him. If something happened to my father, then I should inherit everything from him and continue to look for this secret. Tangua asked, You followed those beasts? Yes. Yin Yarrow nodded. I've been following those beasts for 5 years. Every time I followed them to a place, they would mysteriously disappear. But every time, I could keep a distance from them. If I continue to follow them, I'll find the secret of the beast tide attacking the tribes sooner or later. Tangua was also curious about this world. Previously, she thought it was an ordinary beast world. According to what Yin Yarrow said, it wasn't that simple. Tongzi, is there any hidden plot related to this world? No, dear host, this is a book of the beast world. The content beyond this book is blank. If you want to ask how old Yin Yarrow is before it wets the bed, I think I can find it. As for the secret of the beast tide, this book did not mention it at all. In fact, the system was also puzzled. It had never encountered such a situation before. Could it be that the beast tide was a conspiracy? Then what was the purpose of this conspiracy? Tangua rested her chin on her hand. I'm a little interested. I haven't seen anything interesting in a long time. Every year, There would be a beast tide at a specific time. Interesting. Who was doing this for what reason? What was the other party's goal? Boom boom boom, it was the sound of wild beasts galloping. Tangguo and Yin Yarrow both felt the tremor of the mountain. The surrounding plants were shaking because of it. Yin Yarrow subconsciously pulled Tangguo into his arms. The two of them stared down at the same time, only to see dust flying up from the deep forest in the distance. Then, all kinds of wild beasts came running out, looking fierce. Trees crashed into trees, rocks crashed into rocks. They rushed towards their position as if they were crazy. Tangguo saw a fierce glint in the eyes of these wild beasts, a fierce glint that seemed to want to devour their prey. Chapter 679. The members of a few tribes became nervous as they watched the ferocious beasts rushing over. Their bodies were tense. Even though they had dug many traps, they could not guarantee that they would be able to deal with all the beasts. However, they had no way out now. The members of the Lado tribe and the other two tribes were ready to fight the beasts at any time. The beasts were running very fast. Looking at the aggressive beasts rushing over, no one dared to relax. Seeing that the beasts were about to rush into the deep pits they had dug, they held their breaths. Even Ning Luo was hiding in the cave, looking at the scene outside through the cracks. Back then, a beast almost tore her apart. Looking at the situation outside, if it were not for sufficient preparation and the male beast men blocking the way outside, she might have peed her pants on the spot. The most relaxed one was Tangguo. Although the beasts were crazy and could identify the location of the beast men, their intelligence was not high. If they had a high IQ, they wouldn't be running around like this. Some of the wild beasts hit their own heads and bled because of the obstacles. There were even cases of them hitting themselves to death. It was obvious that they didn't have much intelligence. The wave of beasts in front of them was not all. The other beasts should have rushed to other places where there were beast men. Those deep pits were enough to deal with the wave of beasts in front of them. By the time the beasts in other places reacted, they could have cleared the beasts in the deep pits. Guogua has really become bold. Yin Yarrow still did not let go of her. Instead, he hugged her even tighter. In fact, every time he hugged her and had intimate contact with her, he had an illusion in his heart that they should be this intimate. Because I believe that the method I came up with will definitely make those stupid beasts fall into the pits. Yin Yarrow smiled. Yes, Guogua is a very intelligent female beastman. He had never seen a female beastman smarter than Guogua. Only she could attract his attention and make him temporarily forget to look for the secret of the beast tide. Guogua, I will wait for you to become an adult. Tangguo laughed softly. Okay, High Priest. All kinds of screams were heard continuously. The two of them had no choice but to look down. The beasts that were rushing over had indeed fallen into the deep pits. The pit was very deep, and there were sharpened wooden sticks in it. When one fell from a high place, the sharpened wooden sticks would pierce their bodies. The more they struggled, the deeper they would be pierced. In addition to the beasts that kept falling in from behind, there was no way for the beasts below to survive. The surrounding beast men watched as the originally terrifying beasts fell into the deep pit one by one, followed by miserable cries. They were not afraid. Instead, they were certain that the wild beasts would fall into the pit. So far, no wild beasts had rushed over. They raised their sharp sticks and cheered. That wave of wild beasts fell into the deep pit just like that. Even among the most stupid wild beasts, there were still a few smart ones. The remaining dozen or so did not intend to charge out of the pit. Looking at the miserable state of their companions, some of the beasts even had wooden sticks pierced deep into their bodies. They looked at the mountain in the distance and sniffed with their noses. Under the shocked gazes of the orcs, they ran madly in another direction. They're heading towards the back of the mountain. Heilang's face darkened. Quickly go up the mountain. Push the boulder down before they rush up. Chapter 680. The tribe members quickly ran up the mountain. By the time they reached the top, Tangguo and Yin Yarrow had already pushed the rolling stones down and killed the last dozen beasts. Looking at the bodies of the beasts, the beast men heaved a sigh of relief. They looked at each other and laughed happily. When Hei Lang came up and saw the situation, his cold face couldn't help but smile. Soon, his expression became serious again. There were still many days before the beast wave. Let's take advantage of the fact that the beasts in other places haven't discovered the situation here. Let's get the beasts out first and kill the ones that aren't dead. We'll move them aside and set up new traps. Just like that, after a few days of cleaning and setting up traps, the surroundings of the mountain returned to the way they were before. Seeing that the beasts didn't come here for the time being, they continued to dig deep pits at the back of the mountain. Hei Lang even had a bold idea. From now on, they would use this place as a base to develop the tribe. In this place, they could climb up the mountain and see all directions. The space in the cave was enough for the members of the Lado tribe to live in. They could usually build houses outside and store food in the cave. Once the beast wave came, they could use today's method. In this way, the members of the Lado tribe wouldn't have to sacrifice themselves when the beast wave came. Hei Lang thought this way. The leaders of the other two tribes naturally thought of this as well. They were originally very grateful for the help of the Lado tribe, but now that they saw the benefits of this place, they couldn't help but want to occupy this place. This place was actually not big. They could barely live in it to avoid the beast wave. If they wanted to survive, it couldn't accommodate the people of the three tribes at all. If the members of the three tribes didn't decrease after every beast wave, then their numbers would only increase. A few days later, more wild beasts rushed over. These wild beasts were still rampaging and finally died in the deep pit. After they were cleaned up, on the 15th day, the beast tide came again. This time, none of the members were worried. Many of the members even sat outside lazily and chatted. From their expressions, it could be seen that they were thinking, "Look, there are idiots coming to die again." This time, they didn't lose a single member in the beast wave. They even obtained many beasts. If they made jerky, they would have enough food for half a winter. Tangguo saw that the members of the three tribes were relaxed. She lowered her head and laughed, attracting Yin Yarrow's attention. "What are you laughing at?" "Guess." Tangguo looked at Yin Yarrow with a smile. "Guess what I'm smiling about." Yin Yarrow knocked on her forehead and gave her a final hug. "Agwugwa, I'm leaving." He was going to find out the secret of the monster tide. His departure this time was different from before. For the first time, he was reluctant to leave. He was even afraid that he would lose his life halfway and not be able to come back to see his Agwugwa. For the first time, he was afraid of death. "High Priestess, protect yourself." Tangguo hugged him back. "You must come back alive." "I will." For the sake of his Agwugwa, he would come back. The system felt a little sour in its heart, but when it thought of what Yin Yarrow might face when he returned, the jealousy disappeared. Instead, it sympathized with this guy. In the end, Yin Yarrow couldn't hold himself back. He kissed Tangguo's forehead before letting her go. In front of her, he transformed into a snow-white wolf and jumped down the mountain. Soon, he ran in the direction where the beast disappeared. "So it's a snow wolf." Tangguo clicked her tongue. "It's pretty. I wonder how it feels to touch." The system was a dog. Chapter 681. After the beast tide retreated, the tribes cheered and started to divide the meat. When the meat was distributed, the other two tribes didn't intend to leave. Because of this, the three tribes started to have conflicts. The conflict was triggered by Ning Luo. The other two chiefs took a liking to Ning Luo for some reason. One of the chiefs was from the Eagle tribe and was called Ming Ju. He was one of Ning Luo's future mates. As for the other one, he was just a small character. Because Gaines went out, Hei Lang bumped into another chief who wanted to force Ning Luo to leave Gaines and be his mate. Of course, Ning Luo wasn't willing. One of the reasons was that the chief was really ugly. Ming Ju also took a liking to Ning Luo and said that if Ning Luo was willing, she could be his mate. As long as she agreed, he would help her and ensure her safety. He was taking advantage of her. Hei Lang happened to see this and saved the weak Ning Luo. Naturally, Ning Luo had a good impression of Hei Lang after he helped her a few times. She blamed herself but couldn't help but think about how well Hei Lang treated her. She was in a dilemma. Tangwa read the gossip all day and planned her days. Occasionally, she would chat with Olga about some interesting things. Her days were pretty good. Next, the conflict between the three tribes started. The cause was Ning Luo. Originally, the ugly chief wanted to join forces with Ming Ju to deal with the Lado tribe and chase them out. Unexpectedly, Ming Ju suddenly turned against them and joined forces with Hei Lang to chase them out. What was even more unbelievable was that Ming Ju was willing to join the Lado tribe and become their deputy chief. Under such circumstances, Ning Luo enjoyed the care of Gaines, Hei Lang, Ming Ju, and Ari Mo every day. But other than Gaines, the other three were still in an ambiguous relationship. Ning Luo couldn't accept this yet. There was only one day left before Olga was supposed to die. Tangwa hugged the dried fruit and found Olga's cave residence. Olga was making new shoes for her two mates. Although Olga was a very proud female, she was also very clever with her hands. Perhaps it had something to do with her love for beauty. Agwugwa, don't you like to sleep in your residence? Why are you here? Olga asked. Tangwa sat beside Olga. To make shoes for you and Miku Mill. Yeah, their shoes are all worn out. I'm going to make more for them. Tangwa smiled. Do you plan to go out soon? Where? Agwugwa, did you find something fun? No. Tangwa shook her head. She picked up a piece of dried fruit and fed it to Olga. I just wanted to talk to you. It's really strange that Agwugwa would take the initiative to chat with me. Olga's expression was strange. The high priest has been gone for a long time. Agwugwa, don't tell me you want to talk about the high priest with me. She wasn't worried about Yin Yao. He wouldn't be in any danger. Tangwa didn't beat around the bush and directly said, don't go out tomorrow. Whether it's you, Mick, or Miller, you have to stop them from going out. Understand? Olga blinked. She didn't understand. But seeing how serious Tangwa was, she felt that she should trust her. This was Agwugwa, her friend, and the smartest female. Okay, I'll listen to you. When Miku and Miku Mill come back, I'll tell them to ask for leave from the chief tomorrow. Chapter 682. The next day finally arrived. When Ning Luo heard that the tribesmen were going out, she suggested that they were going to find something useful that only she could recognize. Hei Lang agreed. Gaines, Amo, and Ming Ju were worried about her, so they followed her. Originally, Mirmik was also supposed to go out hunting, but because Tangwa had instructed Olga, Olga asked them to stay with her for the day. These two orcs were obedient to Olga, and their words were more effective than the words of their leader. They hurriedly asked Black Wolf for leave. Hei Lang thought that with Gaines, Amo, and Ming Ju around, there shouldn't be any problems, so he agreed. Dear Ollie, you don't expect us to do nothing but sit in the lodgings with you all day and watch you sew, said Mick. Mirmik couldn't help but say, at least we can go out and find some food so that we can have a good winter. We still have to plan for next year. Maybe we'll have cubs next year. With that, his face was filled with a happy smile. Ollie knocked him on the head. What are you thinking about? What cubs? Gwugwa said that I'm a little princess and it's not time to have cubs yet. Yes, Ollie is right. Then Ollie, you should tell us why we're staying, right? Mirmik asked eagerly. Ollie looked outside. Mirmik tactfully went out to take a look. He walked in and said softly, Ollie, I've checked. No one's here. Tell us. Gwugwa told us not to go out today. The two brothers looked at each other with surprise in their eyes. Was it Gwugwa? That female who always liked to sit on a rock outside and eat dried fruits with a smile on her face was also Ollie's good friend. The two brothers were actually foxes. Not only were they strong, but they were also very smart. They didn't think that Gwugwa told them not to go out for no reason. There must be a reason. Seeing that Ollie didn't care, they didn't choose to tell her that their Ollie was very innocent. She just needed to live happily and let them deal with the troubles. But after thinking for a long time, they still couldn't figure out why Tangwa stopped them from going out. In the afternoon, the members of the tribe came back one after another. They were all in a mess. The two brothers looked at each other. Something had happened. They hurriedly ran out and asked about the situation. Only then did they know that the members of the tribe had walked to a strange place and somehow got separated. Ari Mo had returned with Ming Ju. There were still quite a few members left, including their chief, Black Wolf, and Ning Luo Gan. The entire tribe fell into a state of panic. Mi and Mi Ku were the most shocked. They quietly left the crowd and walked back to the cave. Seeing that no one else was paying attention to them, they began to discuss in low voices. Is Agogwa a prophet? If not, why would she stop us from going out today? The two brothers were confused. No matter how smart they were, they couldn't figure it out. Mill. When the two brothers heard Tangwa's voice, they stiffly turned around. Feeling that she was alone, they heaved a sigh of relief. They were a little hesitant, but if they didn't solve the puzzle, they would feel uncomfortable. Agogwa, Mick said. Could you have predicted what happened today? Tangwa waved at the two brothers. When they came closer, she said with a profound expression, I only dreamt of a voice last night. It told me to tell my best friend Ollie and her family not to go out. I don't know anything else. The system's host was a fraud again. Other than this, there's another important thing that I wanted to tell you. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.